On today's show, a live-action Hunchback. We'll get into Notre Dame. Two big MCU stars team up for a Netflix movie. And if you've been waiting for a direct sequel to Ghostbusters 2, we got one! Collider Movie Talk starts right now.
It's a very questionable hand gesture he did
Was
just
that
now.
a quote from something?
It was side to side. This is shake weight. This is different. This is shake weight, and it's also what Janine Melnitz does from my staff in the original Ghostbusters.
There we go. We got
She
one.
hits the thing.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
got one.
Yeah, I knew
I'm
that
a
was some
Ghostbusters fan. We're going to talk about all that news and a whole lot more. That is the very judgmental Perri Nemiroff. That is a man who usually sits in the middle on this desk, but he has been cast out on an island, Jeff Sneider, for some ungodly reason. I am merely Mark Ellis, and I make odd hand gestures when I'm hosting this show. And I'm also very excited about today's slate of news because we got some good Netflix stuff to dive into. We have actually a teaser trailer to talk about along with this Ghostbusters news. And then we get another trailer starring the one, the only Mr. Robert Pattinson from a TIFF movie later on in the show. But we kick off with that amazing news that Jason Reitman had been co-writing and will direct a Ghostbusters sequel. Not a sequel to the 2016 Ghostbusters movie. Nay, this is a direct sequel to Ghostbusters 2, which came out in 1989, which of course was a direct sequel to the original, the classic, which debuted in 1984. Coupled with this news was a teaser trailer released by Sony today. That's not a whole lot to it, but it's got the classic music from the first Ghostbusters movie. You get to see a famous character-ish from the first Ghostbusters movie, and it feels like you get the vibe of Ghostbusters, if only for a minute-long teaser trailer promo. Now, this movie could hit theaters as early as the summer of 2020 because apparently the script is in good enough shape that Reitman and his team are ready to roll with this, so they could start shooting as early as this summer. No details yet on if any of the original Ghostbusters will return, but they were firm in their statement, and I say they as in Sony and Jason Reitman, that this movie is in that same universe. So we're not talking about the 2016 female Ghostbusters. We're talking about the original Ghostbusters. All that stuff that went down in the 80s did actually go down, and now we're going to have a new movie in that universe with Ghostbusters of some kind. Perri Nemiroff, this news was pretty exciting to me, especially once you find out that it's real and it's actually happening, because we've heard rumors about this forever before the 2016 Ghostbusters since, but now it's actually going down. Does it get you out of bed in the morning?
I actually don't think there was a better way to put together and to announce a new Ghostbusters movie. I love the fact that we have a good deal of the project put together, ready to go before we heard about this, because now when we have this announcement and we have this little teaser, we have something concrete to hold on to, and we don't feel like it's going to go away next week. But also, after all of the, kind of controversy-ish of the other Ghostbusters movie, I don't think there was any other scenario where it would feel like a Ghostbusters movie that was filled with so much goodwill than having Ivan Reitman's son, who also happens to be just a phenomenal director all on his own, step in to continue this franchise that his father directed. And, part of me thinks it's too bad the 2016 movie happened, because I think one way or the other, the existence of this movie is like, oh, well, that female spin didn't work. And I don't like the tone of that conversation, but I understand why that might pop up here and there. But as far as assessing this particular Ghostbusters movie that we're going to get, I think this is a fantastic start.
Yeah, I enjoyed the 2016 movie more than most people. I like the original vibes of Ghostbusters. I thought that there was a lot of funny stuff that happened. I didn't think it was great. Maybe my least favorite part of that reboot, though, Jeff, was the cameos from the original Ghostbusters in there. I just didn't think they hit really hard. So there may be a little hesitation for a lot of fans who felt the same way I did, as far as, are we going to bring back Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson? We can't do it with the late, great Harold Ramis. But do you think that this movie is going to have roles for the original Ghostbusters, and how big are those roles going to be?
I know that it has roles for the original Ghostbusters because Dan Aykroyd already spoiled this months ago and said that he's going to be in it. He actually told the big interview with Dan Rather in November that the script was being written and that he was going to appear in it. So Dan Aykroyd is in, obviously.
Isn't that crazy that because we've heard that from Dan Aykroyd
right, nobody paid attention
over the years, it wasn't news that you run with at the time.
So listen, I think that they will all be in it, because if anyone can get Bill Murray to show up, and that's really what we're talking about here, right? It's going to be Jason Reitman. It's going to, because of that lineage, because Ivan Reitman is so involved and that kind of stuff. I mean, Jason Reitman is he in both movies? He definitely has a line in the second
I know
one.
Catherine Reitman is in Ghostbusters 2 because she used to co-host Schmoes with us. She's a dear friend.
Oh, okay.
She plays Girl with Puppy, and her show Working Moms got picked up by Netflix, so check that out too. But yeah, so I'm sure that they, obviously there's an affinity within the family for Ghostbusters, and that's the first piece of news from this report that made me say this is different than all the other rumors we've heard, because this is Jason Reitman. So if this is Jason Reitman doing it, and yesterday they made a big thing about, oh, he's been writing a script in secret. I'm like, is it really a secret, or are they just not telling anybody? There's a secretive nature to this, and now that it's out, I agree with Perry. It's like, because now it feels like a more of a fully fleshed out idea and a fully formed product that's ready to go, as opposed to we're just hanging out with Dan Aykroyd drinking his vodka.
I think there's a lot to unpack in this announcement. You know, first of all, with Jason Reitman directing and Gil Kenan co-writing the script with him, that's a great team. I loved Monster House. Did you?
Yes.
I was a big fan of that. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
Like that's a really interesting co-writer to have. As far as, you know, is Jason the right man for the job? He's never done anything like this. Okay, he's never worked with like these big effects. He's never done a big effects-driven movie. He's coming off a 2018 where he did two really good films in Tully and The Frontrunner. I really like The Frontrunner, even though nobody went to see it. So it's like he needs this to work in terms of his career. He needs like a big movie. I don't think that we should be upset at Sony for rebooting this. I think it was always inevitable, and it seems to be working for them, whether it's, you know, Jumanji or Men in Black, or just like look at, I don't know, Disney bringing back Harrison Ford for Star Wars, or Creed bringing back Sylvester Stallone. Like this is the kind of stuff that works nowadays. So I think that the time is right. They waited, enough time after the female Ghostbusters, which didn't work for me. But to call that film controversial, I think is generous, because a bunch of dude bros being upset that there are women in a movie, that's not an actual controversy. You know what I mean?
Well, no, it was big at the time, though. I mean, everybody was going back and forth, and people were hating on the trailer, and so it was a thing. I don't know if you necessarily call it a controversy in the way that,
right.
The
media should have ignored it, I'm saying.
That's exactly what happened. But I do wonder, Perry, if there is any room, or if appetite, again, is the wrong word, but is there any way that we could get some of the female Ghostbusters from 2016 of this movie, and we all just become hunky-dory? Or is it because this one takes place in that same universe that we're just going to ignore that entire world?
Even with what I said before, and I could see why the word controversy wouldn't apply. Yeah, I wish everybody ignored it. It's just the fact of the matter that, people out there are going to string together this new narrative where it's like, it didn't work with the ladies, so here we are today. But taking that part of it out of the equation entirely, in that EW piece that announced this, he basically put a stop to it by saying that's great if they could tell more stories with those characters. This is a continuation of Ghostbusters 2. So this is our movie, not with those characters.
It's like Halloween. They're going to retcon it. They're going to skip over a bunch of these sequels that were made, and they're just going to pick up where the original left off. In this case, it's where number 2 left off.
One could assume that you're going to have a new crop of Ghostbusters that are ready to assume the mantle of now the Ghostbusters that you go to if you're having paranormal activity happening around you, that there's a new set of Ghostbusters that you're going to call in that situation, but that they might be mentored by some of the older Ghostbusters. Any names coming to the surface as far as who needs to be cast as new Ghostbusters who make sense?
It's teenagers. It's not going to be like adult stars that we know. They could go with an unknown. Maybe they go with Jacob Tremblay,
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's famous teenagers out there, too.
Yeah, I imagine that they'll try to find someone like that, but I'm not sure what the ages are. From what I understand, it's 4 main roles, 2 boys, 2 girls, and there's 2 younger kids and then 2 older teenagers. So could these be the grandkids of the original Ghostbusters? Possibly. I mean, after all, in the teaser, we saw Ecto in somebody's barn or garage or whatever.
It's kind of like a Bumblebee feel almost.
Right, yeah,
you just discover this thing.
It's a very, very good point. And thinking back to the 2016 movie and how the returning characters and the new characters didn't really meld well together in that movie, this is a great way to just warrant their return and call for it and kind of pass the torch in a way that makes sense for all the characters.
And I don't know, I think this is the right way to do it with mixed genders, too. I don't understand why there needed to be an all-female one. Obviously, the first one was all-male, but it should have always been that. It should have always been a couple of guys and a couple of gals. The youth of it all surprised me. I wasn't expecting them to go so young. I guess it's hot right now with Stranger Things and whatnot. I think that this property needs to hit. Like, this movie needs to hit because it could bury the franchise if it doesn't. So in that sense, I would have thought that they'd go with something a little bit more star-driven, but maybe they find a way to get an A-lister or two in there, be it as the villain or whatever.
If I had to put money on it right now, I bet that Jason Reitman, of all people, could pull it off. I know he's never done a movie of this scale with VFX that a movie like this is going to require, but I put his ability to tell a story about a well-developed character above all else. And I really do believe that no matter what your movie looks like to a degree, just in terms of flashy effects, I think you can sell almost anything to a viewer if you get them to connect with a well-developed character.
And you brought it up by saying Bumblebee. That should be the model here. I know Bumblebee didn't perform as well at the box office, but I think if Sony really wants this movie to work, they should tone down the budget, and it should be a $75 million movie and not a $150 movie. Plus, you have to also think you're not going to get China box office because they don't let ghosts in. The original, I mean, the most recent Ghostbusters did not play in China. So, why are you spending $150, $200 million on a movie when it's not going to get into like the biggest country, so to speak, after the U.S.
Yeah, the other reason I was thinking Bumblebee is because I do like Haley Steinfeld for a role possibly as a Ghostbuster. I think she would fit that model very, very well. Yeah. But let's talk about some other returning favorites that we could have. There could maybe be Sigourney Weaver comes back, Annie Potts, and Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis has been retired for a long time. Is there any way that Jason Reitman and all the others returning, is there any way to pull Rick Moranis back into a film? What say you two?
I think so. I think that is kind of the brilliance of hiring Jason Reitman, is that he can get people in this movie who might otherwise have been reluctant to return.
His name's Louis Tully. Jason Reitman directed a movie called Tully.
I don't know where Rick Moranis or even Annie Potts would fit into this story. It doesn't seem to me like it would be their story.
Moranis was a Ghostbuster for a brief time in part 2.
Sure. Again, I'm not sure what the script is actually ultimately about, but it would be interesting if it was a little bit more personal and like the films that Jason Reitman typically makes.
I agree with what you said in terms of because Reitman's involved, it's more likely than with any other kind of package here that all of these people could come back if they were offered something. But as you started name dropping people, all I kept worrying about is just make sure all these Easter eggs serve the story, especially because I keep going back, and I did kind of have fun with that 2016 film, but some of the little mentions and the nods felt so shoehorned in that I couldn't even enjoy those, and I just don't want that to happen here. I don't want it to be overdone here.
Well, some people out there may know I kind of love Star Wars, and what I think was brilliant about The Force Awakens, one of the things is that we were so excited to get in that theater and have these returning favorites from the classic trilogy that we got to see, and then you watch Force Awakens, none of them are on screen for the first 30 minutes, and I thought the story moved so well. I was engaged in new characters. That's a challenge that hopefully this new version of Ghostbusters can conquer, is get us excited about the new characters, and then by the time we leave, we say, oh, and it was nice to see Murray and Aykroyd and Hudson and all these other people return, but I also like these new Ghostbusters. Can they pull that off? That remains to be seen, but it does look like Ghostbusters 3 finally going to happen. All right, our next story involves, yes, another live-action Disney remake, reboot. Do you even call them that if it's a animated going to live action? This one is going to be the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and it's already got some star power attached to it in a producerial method. Josh Gad is going to be one of the producers of it. No word on whether Josh Gad might eventually want to step into the role or any role in the Hunchback of Notre Dame. But the big news for a lot of you Disney purists out there, and if you're a fan of the 1996 film, is that Alan Menken and Broadway veteran Stephen Schwartz are going to be writing the music. They did the music for the original one, and they're going to be doing the music for this one as well. No word yet on whether it's going to be direct to their new streaming service, which is where the Lady and the Tramp movie's going, or if it's going to be a theatrically released production, or maybe a mix of both. The M. Butterfly playwright David Henry Hwang is writing the script, but no director is attached at this point. Jeff Sneider, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Where does it rank on your most anticipated Disney live-action remake?
I mean, fairly low, but I am a big fan of Josh Gad, and I think that he's really good casting for this character. This is something I'd heard about, like a while ago, and I think I hit up Josh in our DMs, and he played coy.
That's a nice drop in there. You follow each other.
Hey, you know what? He's a really sweet guy, Josh Gad, and I'm happy for all.
He
of
seems
his
like
success.
a great guy, and Disney loves him.
He's been very nice to me. So while again I don't have any real attachment to the Hunchback of Notre Dame or that story, it wasn't one of my favorite 90s animated movies growing up as a kid, but I think that he could do something special with it, and I think that there's a good message underneath it all.
Can you DM Josh right now and ask him if he wants to?
I'll get on that.
Oh, okay.
While
you're DMing your good friend Josh Gad, Perri, do you have any celebrities you can hit up and ask them about the new Hunchback of Notre Dame film?
You know, I was just private messaging in Words with Friends with someone who said, like, that 60-plus pointer, you are so good. Let me give you all the movie news. I don't think it's guaranteed that he's going to play this role in this movie. I think he's just on right now as a producer, but I wouldn't mind seeing him in the part if that's how this pans out. But you know, the first thing that crossed my mind when I read this, and there was no specific like target start date, release date, anything like that, I'm like, oh, this sounds like a streaming service option here, because the truth of the matter is, I know many of you out there, maybe this is your favorite Disney animated movie. That's always possible, but this is just not as widely beloved as, let's say, juggernauts like Aladdin and The Lion King. And if you're going to take a risk, especially if they go maybe a little bit of a darker route and they try something that's totally a little different from the stuff we're seeing on the big screen that's super four-quadrant and family-friendly, play around on your streaming service. Go with that lower budget and take a little bit of a risk with this.
Well, that's my thought, is that it's not necessarily that they want to make movies that are going to goose subscriptions to their new streaming service, like Lady and the Tramp and maybe now Hunchback, but it's almost like they don't want to make live action movies that are going to be released in theaters, in 4,000 theaters in the United States and all over the world, that don't pull in the numbers that a Lion King or a Jungle Book or what we expect a Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, or Mulan to do, because these are going to be billion-dollar worldwide at least. I think Mulan could break all-time box office records, and the Hunchback of Notre Dame, no matter how good it is, it's not going to do that. So maybe does Disney look at that and say, we don't want to affect our bottom line like that by putting all of the P&A and all of the marketing costs into releasing a movie in the theater when it could just land on our streaming service instead?
One of my biggest fears with the rise of streaming services is that eventually it's just going to be two completely separate zones where you're either, I mean, like an epic box office moneymaker where you're talking about all of these $200 million plus movies, and then there's everything else on streaming services. It would take a very long time if that's the direction that we're heading in for that divide to happen, but it does seem like it's trending in that direction a little bit, at least.
It could. If you follow me on Instagram, I posted pics of my new place last night. You got to see a recliner and a rug and nothing else. But what's going to be on that wall is a giant TV. And giant TV, like, people like seeing movies at home now. That's one of the reasons why I'm not ever going to say the Oscars are doing everything right. But I do like that rule for the Oscars and other award shows as well, that for consideration, you have to have your film in some amount of theaters, even for a limited time, because it is nice to go to a movie theater and not see just giant effects and explosions. It's nice to go see a smaller movie. Not going to be the case with The Hunchback of Notre Dame, regardless of how you view it, but it is an option.
This is a totally random question, but you brought up the Oscars. We know Disney has their streaming service. I'm really curious to know your answer to this, actually. Do you ever see a future where the streaming service gets the Oscars? Because that would essentially force people who want to watch the Oscars to pay for the streaming service, and then once it exists where you can watch it and queue it up and scrub through whenever you want, maybe people would be watching it after the fact.
Do I think that the Oscars will ever go streaming? Is that the question?
Yeah, like where you can exclusively get it on the Disney streaming service. I get that it serves the immediate moment of get subscribers fast.
Talking about.
And it's ABC, so they're all in cahoots together, as Disney owns a lot of stuff, one of them being the ABC company.
It'll be interesting to see how many people ultimately subscribe to Disney Plus and how quickly it scales up. That's the advantage that Netflix has, is that it has years of a head start ahead of everybody. So like, there's nothing to say that the Academy's deal could leave ABC. It could leave Disney. Maybe it goes to Netflix. Maybe we're all sitting at home watching the Oscars on Netflix in 5 years.
Well, because how are viewer ratings for the Oscars ever going to improve if everybody's cutting the cord and going over to streaming services?
Right, exactly. It's a great point, Perri. So yeah, I think it's totally possible that in the future we could get a streamed Oscar.
That could really reinvigorate viewers too. Like, could you imagine how crazy it would be if tomorrow they announced, oh, the Oscars in 2020 are going to be on Netflix?
But you could also see a version where it's like a pay-per-view kind of thing too, where it's not expensive. It's not like a pay-per-view fight, but it's like $1, $2. If you don't want to join the Disney streaming service full time or whatever it's airing on, you can pay for a one-time fee of $1.99 to watch the Oscars. And you can and you see a lot of Schmoes is doing that with the Patreon for the Schmoedown. Is that if you want to see all the live Schmoedowns, you can can do that. Now, this is just a great plug for us. So you can do that at a certain Patreon tier. If you don't want to pay for the entire season, you can pay for individual events like the one in New York next weekend. You can pay for that for a one-time fee of, I think it's $2.99. So there you go.
Yeah,
Did Josh Gad write you back yet?
No, I'm still waiting. Josh, hurry up. But no, Disney did tap Alan Menken and Steven Schwartz. They have some real heavy hitters here. I can't recall any. What was like the big song out of Hunchback of Notre Dame? Was there like a song?
I'm with you. That was never one of my favorites. I think I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times, and that's it.
And they've tried to do this. I don't know if it was Disney. It may have been Paramount. I remember they hired these writers, Willie Block and Jake Emanuel, I believe it was, to write a Hunchback movie for Josh Brolin. Do you remember that? They were developing a Hunchback movie for Brolin, and it never came to fruition.
I do not remember that at all. I'm looking up.
There is another one in the mix right now. There's another Hunchback movie being made. I don't know why I want to say Idris Elba's name. Is that
I remember us talking vaguely familiar.
If you bring up the article on Collider.com, I'm betting you that's at the bottom of that article.
Well, the most famous song to ever come out of somebody who's like a hunchback is it's for Netflix, right? Yeah. Is Young Frankenstein. Igor's got a bit of a hunchback, and one time a young man named Steven Tyler went to go to the movies to watch Young Frankenstein, take a break from recording, and when Igor makes a joke, he's like, "Walk this way." He's like, "No, this way." Steven Tyler said, "Hey, that's a good song to put with the riff."
I did not know that was the origin of Walk This Way. Wow.
But it's movie talk, so we move on from the Hunchback of Notre Dame and your Aerosmith history lesson for the day to remind y'all that we have a lot of cool programming that you can catch right now on Collider Video, not the least of which is a Halloween movie commentary. Of course, Perri Nemiroff is in this commentary. Of course, Haley Fouch, the 2 co-hosts of The Witching Hour, as well as Mark Yodi Riley, also a big Halloween fan. Was it fun to revisit Halloween and get to talk about it into a microphone?
It was. I feel like you're jealous now. We would have invited you if you would have come all the way to the office that day. She read my mind.
I was like, I feel like we're giving the readers or viewers this impression that I'm not like a big horror guy. Like I am.
I know.
Next time, hit me up, Perri.
Okay, I promise. It was a good time, though. We obviously had the brand new Blu-ray, which just came out yesterday. And then we also had one of those fancy new Michael Myers blood masks where it's got like the little cut.
That was actually hilarious because I worked from home yesterday and saw all the office photos on Instagram and everything.
I had so much fun with that. It's a really eerie mask. I mean, you could just like hold it up and put it on, hide it in a corner somewhere. It's like the texture of that mask is really freaky.
I think I can almost guarantee that if we do a commentary for the movie Glass when it comes out, Jeff, you're going to be a part of that one.
Count me in.
If you follow Jeff on Twitter, and he is the most important follow on Twitter, you check out his tweets on Glass.
Damn good.
He has a lot of praise to say about the movie Glass. Now, there's no word yet on whether Josh Gad liked any of those tweets, but we do know that he possibly follows Jeff Sneider. And see, Jeff, you're not the devil all the time. Oh, wait, is that the name of the movie that we're talking about next? I'm just that good. This Netflix movie stars Chris Evans and Tom Holland. They sound familiar? Of course. It's Captain America and Spider-Man, and they're going to be in this new film for Netflix. Like I mentioned, it is called The Devil All the Time. It's directed by Antonio Campos, written by Antonio and Paulo Campos, and the movie is described as a Midwestern Gothic involving a serial killer couple. Okay, so you got them. A faith-testing preacher. That's going to be interesting. And a corrupt local sheriff, and a story told across 2 decades. A lot of producers. They're famous producers we're talking about today. We have Josh Gad doing Hunchback, and then for this one, we have Jake Gyllenhaal as one of many producers on this project. No word other than that on what the hell this movie is about. It was a pretty cryptic tweet that Netflix put out in lieu of a traditional press release. So, Perri, we don't really have a sense of when the film is going to start shooting, but we do know you have 2 giant stars in it. It's for Netflix, The Devil All the Time. You heard the premise. Are you in?
I'm definitely into it. That is a huge ensemble, and whether it was just the 2 of them that were announced today, or knowing this entire group here, because it's Robert Pattinson, Mia Wasikowska, a whole bunch of people that sound like a great cast to be working together. For whatever reason, I read that little description, and I'm starting to picture like Bad Times at the El Royale, just because of the way they describe each person in that. I know this takes place over the course of many more years than that did, which was pretty much one night, but I'm starting to like file them into little roles like that. And also with Antonio Campos, I feel like the visual style almost of Bad Times at the El Royale might suit what I've seen from him in certain movies, at least.
Yeah, I'm getting that vibe as well, just because it's like a bunch of different, people that would never usually hang out together are going to be thrown together. Then, Jeff, I also get a little bit of a True Detective vibe from this. Maybe it's because it's fresh in my mind because I watched the 2-episode premiere on HBO, but it's also because it takes place over decades, as does this. So we're going to have younger and older versions of our characters.
Right. It's set in rural southern Ohio and West Virginia, so I can see where you kind of get that True Detective vibe, even though that's set in, I think, in Arkansas or Alabama.
That rural West Virginia and Ohio, that's a beautiful drive. You ever get a chance to do. Very nice.
Listen, I'm just relieved that we're here talking about an Antonio Campos movie and not the Goose character poster from Captain Marvel.
Excuse me.
Antonio Campos, another guy I know. I went to NYU with him.
Look at this.
Yeah.
More names dropped on the floor.
He's the guy who discovered Ezra Miller in After School.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Antonio's movies are very challenging. This seems like the most commercially minded, if you will, that I've seen out of him. The cast is obviously excellent, and the book sounds super violent. Google says it's a shattering vision of violence and redemption, and just an idea of a team of serial killers. I'm not sure who's playing them, but it might be Pattinson and Wasikowska. Chris Evans is the corrupt sheriff, I believe. I don't know who the lead is, who's playing Tom Holland's father. I don't know if that'll be an older actor or if Jake will somehow slip in there, but it's a great cast that Antonio is assembled. I don't know what to expect or when it's going to come out, but with Netflix making the official announcement today on its Twitter, like, it seems like it's inevitable. It's not something that will just languish in development hell like some other like star-studded auteur-driven projects that have been announced. And the one that comes to mind is Shane Carruth's The Modern Ocean, which also had Tom Holland attached and Keanu Reeves and Daniel Radcliffe and Anne Hathaway, and that never got made.
But this Netflix announcement today is coupled with their announcement yesterday about raising prices. And it's so interesting to see all of these star-studded ensemble pieces, like Jeff alluded to, that are going to be on Netflix, that are going to start shooting. And all these projects are in production concurrently. And so it does beg the question, what is Netflix's dollar like right now? Are they massively in debt? As some reports have indicated that they're, I mean, I've seen crazy numbers, and then you also see all the content they're putting out. So, Perry, is this going to be a growing problem for Netflix? Is the bottom ever going to completely fall out? Then all of a sudden we lose all these movies, all this original content, and we no longer are referring to Netflix as a current thing.
I think that of all of the existing streaming services and the rising streaming services, we're basically just talking about a whole ton of risk across the board. Everyone's trying to catch up to Netflix. Netflix is trying to continue to outrun them, and that requires that you spend a crazy amount of money in hopes that it will pay off down the line. So there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that as all these streaming services attempt to rise, a lot of them are going to go bankrupt, and they're not going to be able to keep up and sustain this kind of business model anymore, because the truth of the matter is, when we get all of these, we're only paying for a handful of them. No one's going to get every single subscription service out there.
No, and I think that they made the right maneuver as far as if they knew they needed a price hike, Jeff. If you're having a meeting with your board members and you say, look, we are going to have to jack up prices because we're making a lot of original stuff. We do not want to get any further in debt than we possibly already are. You say, okay, Disney has their streaming service coming out later this year, but most of the general public is like, oh yeah, Disney's going to do something eventually. So before it's concrete that, oh, now I can go get the Disney streaming service, that is when you jack your own prices, because you do not want to have the Disney streaming service debut and then a week later say, oh, hey, remember us, we're Netflix? Yeah, we need 2 more of your dollars a month because we're getting a little desperate here.
I mean, Disney could certainly come, now that the price has been hiked at Netflix, Disney can come in and undercut it. Here's the thing that it breaks down to, though. So I saw this tweet. If you're paying for Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime, which are kind of like the 3 biggest streamers right now, that is more than a cable bill. But that's a big part of that is that Amazon Prime costs $100+ because, I use Amazon Prime not for the content, but for the shipping, the free shipping. The content is just a nice bonus.
You mail a lot of stuff back home to Boston.
I order a lot of things on Amazon.
You fly
I like
members
the free
out
shipping.
here to watch trailers. Exactly. We know how you do it.
So... See, now I lost my thought. Because you're
it's
too
the
damn
3
funny.
things that we sign up for that are more expensive than some cable
if you're
bills.
a Star Wars fan or an MCU fan, Disney Plus may be the streaming service that you feel like you have to own. To me, Netflix is still undervalued. The $2 price hike means nothing to me. I would gladly pay twice as much, period. Like, if you doubled the Netflix
Please don't
cost.
put that thought in there.
I know, but... Like I was on Netflix last night. It's endless the amount of stuff that they have that I would find entertaining, and I don't really care about the MCU shows or the Star Wars shows. So if I had to just pick one, it would be Netflix, and I think it's worth every penny. I mean, think about what we pay for a 2-hour movie. Like, to have Netflix for $13 a month, think of the hours of content that is. I think it's the greatest deal in entertainment.
Even with the risk of burying itself in debt, you still think that
That's not my problem.
Being undervalued. No. I'm not even talking about like you as a consumer anymore. Just the long term as Netflix's debt continues to rise, because that's the issue that I keep reading about every time there's a quarterly earnings report and they reassess how much debt it has. It's always the question, has Netflix been overvalued the entire time? We're constantly talking about Bird Box being the biggest hit ever, but they're spending an insane amount of money making this original content to outrun everybody. Does that ever catch up to them?
I mean, yes, and like, you guys should follow I think it's Enti Lawyer, whatever, on Twitter. I'm forgetting what it is, but there's like an entertainment strategy guy as well, and Netflix is a house of cards in that sense. Like, they're just getting deeper and deeper into debt, and forget about how much money they're spending on the content. Think about how much they're spending on personnel when they're offering publicist jobs for $300,000-$400,000
and research and development. Think about how much money even just went into Bandersnatch alone to build the technology to support something like that.
Exactly. But the whole point of doing that is to essentially muscle all the, like, they're putting studios out of business. They're putting studios who have been in business for decades out of business, or at least putting them on the ropes. And once those studios go under, and we're losing Fox, we could lose Sony or Paramount, in the near future, then you only can turn to Netflix. So they're like almost like trying to create a monopoly, and that's why everyone in the industry is trying to copy them right now.
Well, my cable bill is about to get a lot cheaper for the next 6 months because there's no NFL Sunday package. So that's the real bummer about it for me, is that I just missed the NFL.
Dude,
that's what I'm willing to pay for.
They could make that bid tomorrow,
I know they could.
As soon as the contracts are up, and they could get a game, whether it's the Thursday night game or the Sunday night or the Monday night game. You never know.
I just want it to be a clean break. I want it to be like, hey, now all games are streaming, as opposed to like, God, now I got to watch Monday Night Football streaming and the Thursday night game streaming, which I'm against the Thursday night game in general, just for player safety, but I still watch it. There are a lot of really good Thursday night games this past season.
Listen, there's a lot of streaming services to keep track of, and also, like, I use Apple TV. That is my content delivery thing. I couldn't watch Bandersnatch on my Apple TV. Netflix doesn't want you using its interactive element
and now
on
Apple's
TV.
Also getting in the production business with A24.
It's like, how am I going to watch Disney Plus? Am I going to watch Disney Plus on my Apple TV? Is it even going to be available there? I have no idea.
Well, if you are Jeff Snyder's roommate in the future, as he is currently looking for one, you're going to be splitting a big cable bill. Are you not looking for a roommate anymore?
No, I definitely. You want to move in? Well, you just got a place.
No, I was going to say DM Josh Gad and see if he wants to move in with you. Get a little.
Josh Gad is my broker. He will be screening all potential roommates. Just DM Josh Gad.
Well, if you are living with Sneider, you're probably going to enjoy a little bit of the high life, as he does from time to time, and that is the name of our next
These segues. Who wrote these? You're on fire today.
This movie debuted at the Toronto International Film Festival. All three of us were there. I don't think I saw any one of y'all except for maybe Perry at the meet and greet for a brief second. And none of us saw this movie. It does star Robert Pattinson and Juliette Binoche. It's a very creepy, crawly, interesting-looking film directed by Claire Denis. And Robert Pattinson stars as a death row inmate who, along with a number of other death row inmates, go on some mission to deep space. Maybe they're just going to test them. Maybe they want to see. It's kind of got like an alien feel in that way. But Pattinson also brought his baby daughter along for the ride. At least that's how it looks in this trailer. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on. This is a very in-depth watch as a trailer. Can't imagine what the movie was going to bring to the table. Jeff Sneider, this did not make your docket at Toronto. Will it make your docket once the movie is released?
Yeah, I definitely want to check this out, even though part of me, like 90% of me, thinks I'm going to hate this movie. Like, I'm almost 100% sure I'm going to hate it, but it is Robert Pattinson. He makes interesting choices even when I don't love the movies.
I like The Rover. I thought he was great in that.
Yeah, that was interesting. Again, I didn't love The Rover. It's not something I'd really revisit, but this looks weird and strange and sexual and kinky, and I've heard crazy things about it, so I'm certainly willing to give it a chance, even though, I'm not a big Claire Denis person. I'm not one of those, like, film snobs. But yeah, it's A24. They always deserve consideration.
Okay, so if you're a fan of Antonio Campos and his work, you're not a film snob. But if you are a fan of Claire Denis, you are a film snob. Just getting everything straight according to your own head. Perri, the movie opens on April 12th. You're going to be there opening day.
I'm a film snob. I'm a comic book movie fan. I'm a horror movie lover. Can the list just keep continuing?
More labels.
While we were at TIFF, I had my eye on this, and then I started to hear some lukewarm things about it. So, at TIFF, you basically scramble to make every single second of your time there worthwhile. So the second I start to hear some bad buzz and, I'm figuring out what my last few tickets are going to be for, that's how this one fell off the list. And also, I had heard a couple people, I believe, use the word unpleasant when describing this movie. Mm-hmm. And even though I love crazy genre content, and especially the scary stuff, that's why I think I gravitate more towards campy horror movies, because I get the fun and the entertainment value out of it. And it just sounded like, as this was described to me while we were in Toronto, it was like unpleasant and unsettling in a way that maybe I wouldn't want on my mind. So I started to really shy away from it. But then I saw this trailer, and I'm probably going to watch the movie now.
I'm curious.
So that just speaks to how good the trailer is and how much the trailer sucks you in and kind of, knocks you off balance by the end of it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see it because we're going to save some time for your live Twitter questions at the end of the show. You can tweet us anytime at Collider Video. Use the hashtag Collider Movie Talk. Anthony Shannon already tweeted us about this trailer, and he said he's a fan of Robert Pattinson and other stuff. He's not just a guy from Twilight. He brings up Good Time, which I saw thanks to John Schnepp's referral, The Lost City of Z, and then he said that the trailer for Highlights reminded him of the underrated Danny Boyle film Sunshine. Either one of y'all see that?
Yeah. I can see that.
I'm going to watch it again soon, actually. I got to show it to the girlfriend.
There you go.
Showed the trailer the other night.
Sunshine to the girlfriend, and we are going to move on to those live Twitter questions. Did you have anything else to add about any of these stories before we do that, Jeff?
No, not really. Just, it sounds like there's a lot of graphic sex in it, so
that's for Jeff Sneider.
So sign me up.
All right.
Our paths.
Getting to know a lot about Jeff Sneider and his
high life. I thought it was about me, Ellis.
You can catch the Riley Roundtable tomorrow. You can catch an all-new episode of Jedi Council. Speaking of Jedi Council, I think that this episode of Riley Roundtable is going to be featuring our good friend Dorina, who also is on Jedi Council on a regular basis. She's great. She's probably having a good time with Riley in the podcast interview room right now, talking about them. And then we also have Collider Movie Talk. It's going to be our last episode of the week. 4 p.m. in the PT is when you can catch it. All right, let's do a couple Twitter questions, and we will call it a day. Aiden McHutchinson is up first, and he says, in honor of the new Ghostbusters film, what franchise would you like to see have one more installment and then end it forever? He is going with Alien. He wants one more Alien.
I've got a great answer for this, but I'm going to make Perri go first.
Don't make me go first.
I do like the Alien call because going both that and Ghostbusters, Sigourney Weaver project.
There's two. Come on, Perri. There's an obvious answer here for you. Come on.
Perri Nemiroff.
Take the bait. Take the bait.
Are you fishing for Scream? Is that what's happening right now?
Out of you, yeah. I mean, were you satisfied with Scream 4? We can't be set. We can't let it go out on that note.
See, but the thing is, the question is, what do you want to have only one more installment and that be the end of it? I really do think, as much as I love Scream, I never want there to be a reboot or anything like that. I just want you to continue what Scream is at its core. And I think we're so far removed from the original Scream that it can almost have a meta quality within the meta movie and have a whole bunch of new young characters that takes place to this day, and it kind of uses the original events in a meta way.
That would be clever, too.
That wasn't Scream 4? Was Scream 4 still about the originals, or was it kind of a mix of the two?
But like Sydney and all the original characters were there, so it was less of a commentary on what happened to them, and a little more
I was
about
hoping for that answer from you, but what is your actual answer then?
Okay, no,
I was trying to guide her.
Now
to
you have to give
the thing that's throwing me for the loop is like the end, because I'm finally getting my Final Destination 6, but I don't want that to be that's it after 6. And same thing with Alien. If we get more Alien movies, if there's another creative person out there who comes in and continues that franchise that isn't Ridley Scott, and let's say they have a trilogy in their minds, I want them to be able to make all three of them.
Well, that's the tough thing about Aiden's question too, is that like you could take John Wick, where the trailer is going to drop tomorrow. We're going to talk about
funny.
Talk,
what an interesting thing that you just said. Go on.
John Wick 3.
Oh, we're going to get to it. Go on.
Is closing the trilogy. But if that movie's good, I mean, if any of these movies are good, the issue you run into is that studios are probably going to want to make more of them. So if the John Wick third installment lives up to the past two, I dare say somebody's going to want to make a new movie in that universe?
Here's
Jeff?
my answer, and this is a great pitch. I've developed it with my buddy Pete Friedman. I have to give him credit.
PD.
Are you ready for this? Speed 3.
I'm in.
boy.
You bring back Keanu Reeves. It's called Speed 3 Bullet Train. It's
so
about
in.
these bullet
So
trains
in.
that are all over like China and shit.
Yeah.
This time you'd be building one from between Dallas and Houston or San Francisco and Los Angeles. Who knows what it is? You bring back Jack Traven. The villain is the son of Howard Payne, the son of Dennis Hopper, who is out for revenge. I think Tom Hiddleston would make a great.
I was going to say
villain
someone in
for
the
that.
Busey family, but yeah.
And that's the movie. It's Speed 3, Bullet Train, and the E's in Speed 3 are threes, obviously. Like, this is like a no-brainer. Bring back Keanu as Jack Traven for the love of God.
I am. I just bought a ticket to that movie.
Thank you,
Petey, for corralling Jeff and his very creative mind. Okay, Perry.
Sold.
Yeah.
Perry's sold on that.
It's good.
In that same kind of vein, I would say I want Die Hard to end. I don't want more Die Hards. I want one more Die Hard, and I want that Die Hard to be Ben Troublecook's idea of John McClane goes to Japan to be honored on the anniversary of Nakatomi.
Yep.
And then somebody, I don't know if it's a Gruber, somebody else, Reginald Bell Johnson can go, Sam Jackson can go, and then we have our events unfold and John McClane and company once again have to save the day. And then we walk off into the sunset. And then it's done. Not this Len Wiseman prequel, whatever the hell that's going to be.
Yeah, I don't know
Just
what
give
that
us
was.
one more Die Hard, celebrate all the Die Hards, and end it on the right note.
Okay.
So you got Scream, Die Hard.
Well, she didn't say Scream. So
know,
what
I
was the
didn't, I
answer,
didn't.
Perry?
I loved it.
All right,
Jeff
so
and I
but-
both
It's a
put our
great
heart
question,
and soul
a
into
great
our
question.
pitches.
I do
and
have
after
another
Jeff's pitch,
answer.
Perry was like, yeah, I'm so in. After my pitch, Perry's like, all right.
So just to explain the rules here, this individual is saying the continuation. That doesn't stop me from going back. So when
Right.
I look at the Jurassic Park franchise, let them make that third Jurassic World and call it quits, and instead go back and make something along the lines of a prequel or even some sort of what's it called when a movie, like a companion film, something like that, where you've got everything that's going on with Hammond at InGen and more on the biosim part, like the competing organization there. And that's such a great way to go back and flesh out a super interesting part of the book that we never got in the movies without having people like buying dinosaurs for their military and stuff like that.
No joke. If I was Universal and I wanted to do that for the Jurassic franchise, I'd go to Blumhouse. I would go to Blumhouse and have them
Not a bad
make
idea.
a much lower budget Jurassic movie and just watch the profits rate come in, because the dinosaurs on loose is supposed to be scary. Okay. So Blumhouse would do a great job. There is one other franchise. I'm just going to throw this out there real quick. I know we have to get into another question. I'd love to see Wayne and Garth back together for Wayne's World 3. And then end it with the kids, the kids of Wayne and Cassandra.
Yeah, I think I'm okay there, man. You had so much goodwill.
I know.
And the chat
Pissed on the fire.
The chat room's loving the Speed 3, so we're not going to have time
Thank
to
you.
see what they say about Wayne and Garth, but we do get a lot of good questions. Illegal or Little Eagle says Paranormal Activity would be a good one. The Speed idea, a lot of people are liking the Speed idea, so there you go. We're getting a Terminator one. A solid ending to Evil Dead is from KC Supersonic 1.
Yes.
So maybe that. I'm just surprised, Perry, you didn't pipe up with your favorite movie of 1995. That would be Congo. You don't want one more.
I
more Congo.
I love Congo.
Because you always talk about Jurassic Park, and I'm like, well, Congo's also
There was
a
something.
Mashup.
There was
Yeah.
something about just in my life, probably with the close proximity of their releases, about Jurassic Park that just beautifully paved the way to Congo for me. But no, Congo should just stay.
Michael
as it
Crichton.
is.
That's the connection. It's actually
No,
brilliant.
I don't mean Mike. I wasn't reading those books at that point in my life. I think it was about, the blockbuster crazy spectacle. And I still vividly remember in my hometown, movie theater, the cardboard cutout for Congo and how
big
excited
release.
I was.
Yeah, maybe you could make Joe Don Baker's character like a young Dr. John Hammond going after the diamond before he regains his senses and says, no, I'll genetically engineer dinosaurs instead. That's for you at home to decipher. That is going to do it for this episode of Collider Movie Movie Talk. We're all done here. We will see you tomorrow for our last episode of the week. I want to thank my panelists, Perri Nemiroff, big Scream Jurassic Park fan, Jeff Sneider, a big fan of Speed, apparently.
Bullet Train, baby.
And a big high life enthusiast. Not the movie yet, but just the lifestyle. I am merely Mark Ellis. Throw it to the wide to say goodbye. See y'all tomorrow for the last episode of Collider Movie Talk of the Week. Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.